A word of warning, this podcast explores graphic and disturbing stories and includes some strong language. It therefore may not be suitable for our young listeners or other folks who may find it disturbing. Hello and welcome to True Crime News, the podcast covering high-profile and under-the-radar cases from across the country every week. I'm your host, Anna Garcia. Our case this week, it is the crime case dominating the conversation, the brazen murder of UnitedHealthcare CEO, police say, at the hands of an Ivy League graduate from a wealthy family. Police say the murder was targeted, carried out on a New York City street, and captured by security cameras. Unlike other recent cases where internet sleuths have jumped in to help with the search, many prominent volunteers online said they would sit this one out. What is it about this accused killer and this victim that has flipped some of the sympathy away from the victim and given to the man believed to have taken a life? We're recording this on Thursday, December 12th of 2024. Our guest today is Susan Hendricks, an investigative journalist, the author of Down the Hill, My Descent into the Double Murder in Delphi, which is out now. And Susan, you have your own podcast as well.
Yeah, it's called Crime Conversations with Susan Hendricks, just starting out. But I would love for your audience to come along and see it. And we talk about, of course, Delphi and other cases as well. But this case, Anna, as we were speaking, it's perplexing on so many levels.
It really is. Everyone I know is talking about it. Everyone has an opinion. And I do not recall, as a journalist who's been a journalist for a long time, ever seeing a case like this where the sympathy has, in such a huge degree, flipped toward the accused killer and away from the person whose life was taken.
Absolutely. And I think that points to the fact, and it really, you can't stop thinking about it or talking about it or seeing it, which is the healthcare system in the U.S. and how so many people feel nothing for this man who was gunned down, a father of two, CEO of United. They have no sympathy or empathy towards him. And I think that is because they feel like that company, healthcare in general in the US, has done Americans so wrong that in a way they feel vindicated. And that can be dangerous. But I'm wondering, Anna, I don't know if this will happen. Will we see any change? And of course, that you're thinking maybe that it's dangerous all around to think that that's not the way to do it. We're not allowed to do that. There's rules of the US. Of course, you can't be upset with something and then gun down someone else. And I'm also perplexed about the man accused of this, Luigi, because of his background, because he was valedictorian, had so much going for him, throwing it all away. He had the smarts to take this on a different way.
Oh my gosh, that's exactly what I have been saying, Susan, with his pedigree, his education, his natural, brilliant brain, right?
And
clearly
access,
and he had access. He could have harnessed all of that power to maybe make a change in a different manner. Would it have been as explosive as this? Absolutely not. Nothing can be like that. But again, this was not the path to take. And I am so perplexed by it all. Yeah. Nothing about this case is standard. When we have a young male shooter who does something like this, so brazen in public, there will be warning signs. We'll hear he wasn't doing well in school.
Despondent,
right? No friends. Police had been called to the house. Serious mental illness, could not get treatment. None of this appears to fit in this situation at all. I don't know what to make of it. I know we're all going to talk about this. We're going to move the conversation to YouTube. We have a vibrant comment section there, and that's why I thought we should have this conversation, because everybody needs to express something on this. So we're going to go through the details. You may know all of them already. We also know there have been updates daily and so much information coming out. But really, the main part of this case, except, of course, a very clear motive, which we're still waiting on. We have little bits and pieces that have come out from the manifesto, little bits and pieces from a notebook that he had in his possession, but we haven't seen it all. Do you find that interesting, Susan, that police haven't just presented the whole thing for all of us to read and decide for ourselves what it means?
That doesn't surprise me because of how long I covered the Delphi case and how we got no information there. But a lot of this does surprise me in terms of what they're releasing. And also, it just doesn't make sense. It doesn't fit. And I think that's why so many people are talking about it, because he seemed calm. We saw that surveillance footage of that person shooting the CEO. He seemed calm, but then he gets caught in the McDonald's and earlier in the hostel, he took down his mask. So there's so many questions here. And we're also wondering the why. Was it that his mother was in pain? There's some writing that his mom was in severe pain and no one would help her. Was it his injury, his back injury? So according to NBC News, his account on Reddit, where he was talking about specific ailments that he had, he said in 2018, he suffered from brain fog, maybe connected to Lyme's disease that he had. And I feel like what is telling, apparently he was supposed to be in someone's wedding, cut off communication from the friend who wrote him saying, what's going on? I got to know. Tell me. So that to me said that was the beginning of this isolation, alone, disconnected from his family. So what happened in that particular time? And his family reporting him missing at 26. Missing? Does that mean they knew he'd be a danger to himself or to someone else? It makes you wonder. I feel like his sister, his mother, his direct family may know the answers to this.
They may. For someone of his age, he was also a very social young man. That's the other thing that's he's not like the loner.
Yeah.
But 6 months prior to this, it seems as if he became that loner, disconnecting entirely from his family and friends where people could not reach him. And then later on, with his mom filing that police report in San Francisco 2 weeks before the shooting, it just tells you something changed. We don't know what that is. We don't know what happened, but I think that will be important. So let's go through the details of what we know so far. And again, we hope that all of you join this conversation on YouTube. So we have now 26-year-old Luigi Mangione, who has been charged with the murder of UnitedHealthcare's CEO Brian Thompson, who was 50 at the time. The shooting occurred outside a Manhattan hotel, the Hilton. It's so shocking. We've all seen that video. He's walking to a conference. This is on the morning of December 4th. It was just before 6:45 a.m. And then this figure comes out. Several people said he had been waiting. So clearly he knew, the shooter knew where the CEO was going, at what time, walking, perfectly planned out as far as a murder. He made mistakes, though, right? Because we also know that he had stopped at Starbucks, according to police. The shooter had stopped at Starbucks. There was some video. They knew he got a bottle of water, a Kind bar, one of those like protein type bars, and that he left at the scene in a trash can the water bottle, the wrapper. You know, these are mistakes that, for example, a professional hitman would not make, because there was speculation in the beginning this was a professional takedown.
Right.
And
was he planning this? And if he was, wouldn't he plan those steps and take precautions of, I'm not going to stop at a Starbucks before I'm doing this? It says to me there weren't nerves surrounding this, that he knew what he was going to do and he was okay with it, which is chilling. And I know my sister has twins, a boy and a girl, and they're seniors this year. She has to put together their yearbook pictures. And I saw that with Luigi, just pictures of him from his high school yearbook. And it broke my heart. I mean, there was nothing that would indicate that this person, this boy, when you see him senior year in high school, would do this at age 26. What happened? I wonder if we'll ever connect the dots, if this will ever make sense. And why did he want to make a statement with this particular person? And in some of his writings, he does indicate why. He says this is where they are at the conference, and he decided, I don't know what led him to that specific person. Maybe it's because he was the CEO, that's what he was going to do. And it didn't seem like there was any remorse, but it also didn't seem, Anna, like he wanted to get away with it, considering the quote unquote mistakes after.
Yeah, it's so perplexing because he's sloppy in what you could, like a Starbucks, you could say is like a fast food place, right?
Yeah.
A fast food coffee place. Where does he ultimately get arrested? At a McDonald's eating hash browns. So in some ways, he's such a young kid. Do you know what I mean? He's such a young person, stopping to snack because he's hungry. But it's in those moments where he really did let down his guard and made it possible for police to find him. So many people were fascinated at the pre-planning, meaning that there was the electric bike that he had,
Yeah, his
stashed away,
getaway
his
bike,
getaway, right? That he
Mhm.
managed to go through Central Park. Police say he dumped his backpack. He ditches the bike, gets in a cab, then goes uptown to a bus terminal, presumably takes a bus out of town, and is ultimately found in Altoona, Pennsylvania.
Yeah. And apparently he tried to check into a motel right near that McDonald's. And I saw an interview with the manager there, and he asked me, can I check in? And he said, no, it's 1 o'clock. Your room will be ready. And he said, can I wait here? And the gentleman said, no, you can't. He did notice that he seemed a little skittish, turning around a lot. And what he thought initially was, this is ex-military. He said he's seen it before, that if they hear loud sounds. So that's what he was thinking. He said the man had a mask on and he looked a little skittish. So then he went to McDonald's, but Ed sat inside and was eating. I mean, that's where it's, did you think it through to the end, or did you not think past that you thought this is what you had to do to make a statement? And did he care if he got caught?
Let's continue on here. So what do we know about Brian Thompson, the head of one of the largest U.S. insurers? He had worked at UnitedHealthcare for 20 years. The company brought in, and this is probably where some of the anger starts coming up, $281 billion with a B in revenue last year alone. That is inconceivable, that kind of money.
Yep.
Subject to a lot of criticisms about denying claims. Brian's salary was more than $10 million. He was separated with two high school age students. They lived in a Minneapolis suburb. And we're going to get to the bullets and what was written in the bullets, and how, again, everything is connected to healthcare. I mean, he has certainly, the shooter and the alleged killer here, Luigi Mangione, has certainly focused this on healthcare at every point possible. And you're right, Susan, last week, Susan, I got a denial from my insurance company, $1,500 that the insurance company will not pay for my physical therapy, which they had paid before, $1,500.
No one is immune to this. I heard Chris Cuomo say, he was doing a local news hit, and he said, look, I know that everyone is feeling this at different levels. He said, with me, there was something that was turned down with my family, and we may go to litigation. So it's happening over and over and over again, so much so that Brian Thompson, the man that was gunned down and murdered, is no longer a human being. No one's personalizing this. No one's talking about himself as a father. I see bits and pieces here and there, but he's really symbolic of what's going on here. Is it right? No. But it's certainly kind of spearheaded this revolution or outspoken anger. I mean, everyone has dealt with this, and maybe no one has talked about it in the past, maybe within ourselves, but now we see it everywhere on social media. So much so, from these humorous memes of how good looking he is, the shooter, Luigi, to
so many shooter, of those,
to we didn't see anything. You do us wrong, we're doing you wrong. It's a dangerous path to go down, of course. It's not right. Something has to change. We're seeing this. I wonder if it does, and I wonder how it can.
That video of the shooting has been seen around the world. The masked gunman fired the 3 shots at Brian Thompson. The shooter was able to clear the chamber even though it jammed. So now we know, according to police, they claim that the weapon that was found with Luigi at the McDonald's is a ghost gun, much of it created with a 3D printer.
Wow.
It's unclear whether Luigi is the one who made it with a 3D printer, but given that he had an undergraduate and graduate degree from the University of Pennsylvania in engineering and in computer science, one would think he had the ability to do that. So the thing about ghost guns, and I was very curious, they've already said, the police in New York have said that's the gun. I really have wanted to talk to a ballistics expert, because the thing about ghost guns is, because sometimes they're made out of kits, but this one appears to truly be completely homemade, except
Wow.
for certain metal parts that cannot be replicated, or at least in this case, the alleged shooter chose not to. I was always curious about the stability of the gun during the ballistics tests. The gun still had bullets. Police say that the casings found at the crime scene match this weapon. I will be really interested in this part of the investigation, Susan. I don't know what to make
Yeah.
of this.
Covering different stories through the years and school shooters, and you see there's a look in their eye where you just don't see much. It's kind of an emptiness. And looking back and watching his speech to his senior class, I mean, that just is a kid that has it all together and love and for his family. You just see so many things that we don't see with this. And that's what's so perplexing because I don't think it was predictable. I know he was in pain, and was it the injury at all? I don't know.
I don't know. I do believe he will tell us, and here's why I think so.
Mm-hmm.
Because as he was being transported from a police vehicle into a courthouse, and he had the jumpsuit on, he starts screaming when he sees the media. Not screaming like "Get away from me!" He's screaming, "This is an injustice to the intelligence of the," I'm paraphrasing here,
Yeah.
to Americans. So clearly, he sees media and cameras as he's being transported, and he needs to say what he needs to say. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
I believe until he is heard, he's not going to be done. All of this, he's got something to say to all of us, and he has been doing it in bits and pieces. But I think when given a chance, I don't know if his attorneys will let him speak, but I see him wanting. Does that make any sense? I see a desire in him to
Absolutely.
speak to us, just with the messages on the bullets: deny, defend, depose.
Depose.
So, that is a reference to a book about the insurance company. It's also a reference to what is considered to be a tactic that is used by insurance companies to delay paying out on a claim.
Mm-hmm.
His messages are actually fairly clear,
Yeah.
consistent, but we're all sitting here and still asking, why this man? Why like this?
And inside the courtroom,
yeah.
According to a reporter who was in there, he was interrupting the attorney we talked about, interrupting him. So I'm wondering, and I'm looking ahead, will he stand trial? Will the attorney, whoever the attorney is who's appointed to him in New York, will he be able to say, don't speak about this? And then we hear about reports that he was shaking when he was arrested. So is he that young boy, the innocent person who's shaking, who's nervous, who doesn't know who knows what he did, but doesn't? Now it's the point where he has to pay for this. Maybe he thought it through and idealized it in his head, and now are the consequences. Or like he was shouting, does he not care? Is he still standing by his messages of the system? Because I don't know. And I wonder if he knows about all the support. This was telling to me, Anna, so it was a News Nation reporter outside of the prison. And he's saying, I'm out here of where Luigi's being held. And the prisoners were at the window saying, Luigi's conditions aren't good. They aren't good. So he has the prisoners rallying around him. This is unheard of. It is. There is not one person. There are several people who say, look, we shouldn't glamorize this. Brian Thompson was a person. He's a CEO. You can hate the business. It's not right to gun someone down, of course.
Of course not.
But I've never seen anything like this, where there is zero sympathy overall for the man who was murdered. And there's a message that I think all of these Americans are saying is, look, you turned down healthcare. We're forced to pay for this. Everyone has healthcare. Then when I need you, we pay thousands of dollars a month. I need you in serious surgery, and you're rejecting all of our claims. And it's more of an issue than I even knew it was.
Yeah, it's almost as if, and not to go too far back in history, but a lot of times when you see guerrilla warriors, taking down, let's say, a country or a region, so many times they will be truly educated, sometimes coming from rich families, and they're all part of like a social movement. We've seen it in countries, all over the map where there are characteristics like that, where they can be charismatic leaders.
Yeah.
And so it's just so interesting how Luigi Mangione, an accused murderer, is even got like the prisoners behind him. It's extraordinary.
And when he first gets in, because Anna, you and I have covered a lot of cases, it's usually it's not that way when you're in prison. I know, at least from Richard Allen, of course, accused and now convicted of murdering 2 young girls. That's different because he was tortured in prison, according to his attorneys. With this guy's idealized for shooting down a CEO who's bringing in $10 million a year. No one has sympathy for that. Apparently, he was in some sort of trouble for insider trading. And so obviously, killing someone's not the right thing to do. It's not solving the problem. It's not something anyone condones.
No, it's not.
But
this conversation is not about. But this conversation is not about condoning that. We want to be really clear here. We are as confused as everyone else is about the facts of this murder. No one is condoning that this was the way to do it. What we're discussing is the interesting reaction of the public and where their sympathies have gone, mostly toward the shooter. But yes, a man has lost his life here. So ultimately, he is captured at a McDonald's 200 miles away from the crime scene. He was spotted eating his hash browns. Several people recognized him, kind of joked about it. And again, he was captured because of a call from a member of the public, not because of millions of dollars in AI technology, not because of, and yes, because they released all those photos, because of all the surveillance cameras in New York, they were able to get such good pictures of him and tell you what he was wearing at these different points. But it was a member of the public. And now there's been this massive backlash against that McDonald's where, people online are making threats to the McDonald's, want to boycott the McDonald's for turning him in.
Right. I think that's also a big question I have, is that you went through all of this. You knew who you wanted to target. You waited, the timing. It looked like he was on the phone. I'm not sure. It looked like the shooter was on the phone right beforehand. And you did what you wanted to do, what you planned to do. You got on a bike and left, and no one knew who you were. But then allegedly, like flirting with someone, bring down the mask, and then going into a McDonald's. Clearly, he didn't know how much people were talking about this, or maybe that someone would recognize him. But he didn't go through the same planning as what maybe he didn't think through, Anna, what would happen next. And if you're able to do that, if you're capable of that, no matter what family you come from, something's not right. So you're willing to take that risk. And I wonder if there were signs of that. I feel sorry for his family. And I saw a couple pictures of his huge family. And I saw that his sister was messaging him in the weeks before saying, "Are you okay? Are you all right?" And I believe it was maybe on social media. So I know they're probably going through it right now thinking, but they couldn't have dreamed that that's where it was going. Maybe they just thought, look, I'm worried, I'm concerned, the mom, that we haven't seen him much. And there's even talk of him in Hawaii and how they've interviewed people there and said he was just wonderful. There's no reports of anything that would say this person is violent.
Yes, that's just it. If it would have come out by now.
Yeah.
There have been, no one has come forward and said, that he was mean to them or hurt them or, was volatile.
Or a loner or bullied or
nothing. None of that has come out. In fact, I reached out to a classmate of his and because remember, he is the same age as many young people in my personal life.
Your son is similar age.
Oh yeah, my son went to an Ivy League school, not this one. Same age.
And valedictorian.
My son was a high school valid, and so I'm sitting here as the mother of a child about the same age, I'm freaking out. I'm freaking out, and so I started. I happened to know a lot of people that age. and I started reaching out, and I was text messaging with a woman, same grade, knew him from all the frat parties, and absolutely, she cannot believe this, that he never showed anything other than kindness, that all of his vibe, everything about him was like likable,
Sweet.
right? That's why I keep saying perplexed. This is a mystery to me, this thing.
They're at University of Pennsylvania, and there was someone in the dorm that was interviewed, and he said she would bring, and again, I'm getting this from TikTok because there's a lot of them. And my daughter, 15, that's how she knows about the story. She doesn't sit down and watch the news. She knows it from TikTok. And she said that he would, if he took ice cream from someone, or he'd bring them back ice cream. He just seemed like a happy person, happy, kind. And sometimes we do hear, and if someone's asked to describe someone, they could say loner. Not necessarily that he was violent, just he was to himself, or he may have been depressed.
Here's the text message. Message. And again, I cannot, I promised this person I would not reveal their identity. I only had positive experiences with him. I knew him through the frat and his brothers. They're all in shock. His classmates, his friends, in shock. This is not the one people would point the sign at and say, point the finger at and say, we saw it. You know how people after like a serial killer is arrested, they all come out and they say, oh, we always thought something was up.
Yeah, something was off. So, right.
That's not the case here.
Do you think this goes to trial? I know I'm getting ahead of myself here, but do you think it does? I mean, and can they find a jury that's fair and impartial? If you look online, no. The answer is no.
That is going to be a challenge. I think it's going to be a real challenge. And not just because of the sympathy factor, which of course, things can change, moods can change. But here's the other thing. If you do get chosen as a juror and you all collectively find him guilty, you as a juror could be subject to threats by the public. Are you, as a regular citizen, willing to put yourself through this for this case? And perhaps you will be targeted. Are you really?
That's a great point.
I don't know if I'm going to put myself through this for a case like this. It's just many things to think about, because of this wave of support for him. Now, when Luigi was apprehended by the Altoona Police Department, he was, they say, in possession of the 9mm ghost gun, much of it made with a 3D printer. Also, the silencer was made by a 3D printer, they said. And in addition to his handwritten manifesto, there was a notebook, plus there were fake IDs. And what the New York police say is a big piece of evidence is that a fake New Jersey ID, the driver's license, which was allegedly found on Luigi Mangione, matches the ID given at the hostel where the suspect stayed. So, there's that piece of evidence. There is now the gun, which authorities say ballistically match. And then they also say they've been able to match his fingerprints, meaning Luigi's fingerprints, to one of the prints left on the water bottle from Starbucks and the Kind snack wrapper found at the scene. So now let's get to the manifesto and the book. And a few news organizations have been able to give just like snippets here. So one of the quotes is, frankly, these parasites had it coming. So definitely anger towards the industry. In another excerpt, it says here, quote, to the feds, I'll keep this short because I do respect what you do for our country. To save you a lengthy investigation, I state plainly that I wasn't working with anyone.
All right.
Okay.
It's like I'm cutting down on your work, right?
Let me get right to it. And think about it. He's actually respectful to the investigator, saying, I respect what you do. I'm not mad at you.
Yeah.
Here's the other thing about Luigi that, again, I'm trying to figure out, like, you're looking for consistency of
Yeah.
behavior. I'm looking for,
Yeah.
how he reacts to things. You know how you said that in court he like was arguing,
Yeah.
talking and stopping his attorney and kind of interrupting a lot. So here's the other thing.
Yeah.
He said he objected to the assertion that he was carrying $10,000 in cash. He said, I don't know where that money came from. It must have been planted. I don't have that kind of cash.
Oh.
Isn't
And I
that
tend to maybe believe
is
me, being me here, listening to you, listening to this for the first time. I'm thinking, well, he sounds truthful at the beginning of why would he lie about that? You
I,
know, it seems
I
trivial to say that's not mine.
and then he also got upset because he had, I forget the name of the pack,
Oh, a
that
backpack?
no, the special pack that is it doesn't let the cellular data signal emit. And then he
Oh,
says, no, I didn't have it for that purpose. It's waterproof. So again, arguing over why he has something that if you suggest it's for one thing and he believes that it's not, he needs to correct you.
instead of trying to get himself out of it, that has nothing to
Correct.
do with it. So he's almost like, yeah, I killed him, so to speak, but that's waterproof. That you're wrong on this. You're wrong, and here's how I thought it through, which makes me think he tells it all. He tells all, I guess.
I don't know. I don't know. So
Mm,
again, motive is the thing. You don't have to prove motive in a murder
true.
case, but it certainly helps, with the narrative that is presented by investigators. And it certainly helps the rest of us try and understand. And the reason we're so invested in this, first of all, it happened on a public street. It was captured by
In New
cameras.
York, yeah.
We all collectively saw this. If we didn't see it in real time, we have seen it many times.
Yeah.
And it has forced a discussion which all of us are invested in. So um, so there have been reports, and here's the thing, until we hear from him, but you've talked about a little bit about when he was in Hawaii, that he was living in this co-living situation in Hawaii, and
Mhm.
he had shared with one of those cohabitors, because I don't think you can really say it was a roommate,
Right,
that
right.
he had problems with his lower back, that it was causing a pinched nerve, that the pain was debilitating. And this person, who's been interviewed several times by CNN, has said that he can allegedly, Luigi confided that the pain prevented him from dating and physical intimacy. If you're a young 26-year-old,
Yeah.
25-year-old, that severely impacts your ability to be who you are at that age. So I don't know.
Right.
And I know there's many rabbit holes to go down Reddit.
Mm.
We can only share what has been reported, and not all of it has been confirmed.
Mhm.
So the shocking thing also about Luigi, as
Mhm.
you've made mention, is his big and wealthy family.
Yeah.
So this is someone who would have had a lot of support. It seems like it's a close family, so emotional support.
Mhm.
Um, Certainly, it's not like he was out on the streets, and he would have also financially been supported. I found his family to be
Mhm.
very interesting. The New York Times had a very interesting article on the Mangione family going back
Oh.
to grandpa. And so his grandfather was an immigrant, self-made millionaire who started working at the age of 11 because his father died. And then he enlisted in the Navy during World War II. He came back from the war, got a
Mhm.
job as a bricklayer, and then started a contracting company. So he ultimately made a lot of money.
Mhm.
Now, you talked about his country clubs that the family owns. Now, this to me is actually so telling right now.
Mhm.
This is according to the New York Times.
Yeah.
So the grandfather felt that he was being discriminated against in Maryland in the 1970s because he was Italian and he was not an Ivy Leaguer
Mm.
and came from a very poor background, and they wouldn't let him join these golf
Wow.
clubs. So
They
what
go
do
and buy it, right?
so what does he do?
Yeah.
He buys one and he builds one
Good for him.
for
Right.
himself.
Yeah.
And I'm like, wow. So
Underestimate me. Right. Exactly.
you don't want
Or
me?
tell me I can't come in somewhere, I'll buy it.
Exactly. So I'm
Mm.
like, wow, that's such an interesting family. And then, again, according to the reporting of the New York Times, that at one point, like, I guess, grandpa, so one of the sons, which would have been Luigi's uncle, one of the sons was cut from a local soccer team, and the grandfather barred the team's coach from the country club because he was mad. I'm like, it's an interesting family.
Yeah.
So Nick Mangione Sr., this would be grandpa, died in 2008, leaving behind 10 children. And at that time, 35 grandchildren. It's a massive family. And they have an empire that includes 2 country clubs, a chain of nursing homes,
radio
and
stations,
the conservative radio station, all of this. So I am really, again, you know what this reminds me of?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. This is a case out of Delaware, which, be the next state over. Remember when one of the DuPonts went nuts on his estate and had, oh my God, it was a scandal. And I believe he was accused of murder. And it's like, when you see someone so rich, so much access, like go berserk and commit a crime, it's very jarring.
Yeah.
But he was believed to have been very eccentric, and was, an adult, meaning he was not a young person. And Luigi's case is confusing because so young, so much promise, and we have not heard any deviations or any behavioral issues like we would have with that DuPont family member.
The grandfather, I also heard, I saw an interview with someone who worked at the conservative radio station for 20 years, said they'd have parties and he was so generous and so nice. And he said, I don't know if I met Luigi through the years. This was an older gentleman. Maybe I have, but just a loving family. Now, we never really know what goes on. He's talking about parties and he worked for that radio station. But, and through the New York Times, they've been doing an excellent job. I read an article about also Brian Thompson. Like, he was self-made. He grew up in a small town and he was able to make it to the CEO of this company. And apparently, but when he was at the helm, they denied more cases. And so I believe it was 35%. I'm not sure exactly what the number is. And then I believe the company said, that was an AI mistake of all these denials. But I believe that not many people talk about it. You don't hear it on the news very often about our broken system. And now I'm hearing about it. I knew it was bad. I just didn't know the specific stories and where do you go from there if they reject you? And because of the wealth and the power of this family, everyone thinks, well, what problems could he have? If he couldn't afford the surgery, the family can do it. And I heard someone say, if you have wealth, you're eccentric. If you don't, you're nuts. It's kind of like, so with the wealth comes the ability to pay for the surgery, to get people on your side, and maybe to think now and then, oh, that's terrible. That family can afford that. Okay, move on to your regular life. He, according to what we heard about him and what we've seen thus far, that it was personal to him. Was it his mother? I read somewhere, I'm not sure where, that the mom had a debilitating pain. And
the Daily Mail has been reporting that, and they've been very specific. They're really been the primary source of that. And we don't, and also there was a YouTuber who claimed to have access, I believe, to either the manifesto or the notebook, and the writings that they shared don't sound exactly like the few bits that have been released. So again, we can't verify. We don't know. Everyone, different reporters have different relationships and access to things. So we're trying to stick to that, which
even if that
has multiple sources.
Yes. Even if that fits into the narrative that you want, let's say, okay, you see one article and that fits into, oh, he was saving his mother, because everyone wants to understand it. Oh, it's his mother in pain. Well, they had the means to be able to take her to the best specialists. If this is true, I'm just saying that. And even with his back, they had the resources, because it's so many times if you're denied, and it's shocking to me how many times what he etched on those bullets, allegedly, that's the way it goes. You delay, and then your family members get even more sick. So I think that's why, that there's a collective, okay, this is the bad guy, this is the good guy in all of this. But we're just trying to get to the point of, I don't think any why will make sense, Anna. Even though I'm right there with you, I'm going, was it the mother?
Maybe.
Was it his back pain? Was it, but how do you go from that happy? And I was just thinking, where'd the anger come from? Then I think, what anger? He didn't seem angry when he was shooting. And I know it was just surveillance. He just seemed calm. And then the smile, something's off. And I wonder if we ever.
Well, in that video, the video where he's being transported from the police vehicle to the courthouse when he had that outburst,
Oh, yeah.
and the police are grabbing his neck and head.
You see that. Yeah.
And you can see his anger come out. Someone asked me, can that be used in the trial against him? I said, absolutely.
You're right.
What he said, he'd already been Mirandized.
Yeah.
What he said can be used against him. The prosecution in New York can play that video to show that he isn't the sweet little Ivy Leaguer, but that you have a very angry young man because he revealed that at that point. So it's going to be an interesting, if this does go to court, meaning if it goes to a jury trial. In talking with my friend, the attorney in Philadelphia, he's like,
what he said?
Well, he said, there's so much evidence against him right now. He said, I don't know what possible defense you have other than insanity or mental illness, because if the gun is shown ballistically to be the murder weapon and it has his prints on it and his prints, Luigi's prints, allegedly match prints found at the scene, and then he has Luigi's found with a piece of fake ID that matches the fake ID that the shooter used at the youth hostel.
I just thought of something. What? With O.J. Simpson. Think about the blood droplets and the glove and the all of the evidence there, but it really became about a bigger issue.
Yes,
Rodney King and police brutality. This will be about healthcare. Period. This guy can walk.
Wow.
He may not be the celebrity that OJ was, but he is on TikTok. He is now in a different way.
That's so interesting because I just interviewed Marcia Clark, the prosecutor in that case, because she has a new book out. So I interviewed her for True Crime News, the television show, not the podcast. And so we were talking about the Menendez brothers, which was happening at about the same time as the O.J. Simpson trial. And she said, whenever she talks about that trial, she said, we're talking about how there wasn't social media then, but there was a sense of injustice in Los Angeles over the cops.
Police brutality, getting away
with beating up Rodney King.
We all saw it on video and they got away with it. Yeah.
And that when it came to OJ, that the jury and the public sentiment was no.
Not going to happen.
Not going to happen.
That's what the cheers were for. Finally, we get a win. Finally.
So that could happen. This could happen.
Exactly. Nicole and Ron were an afterthought, and I believe Brian Thompson will be an afterthought. Here it is.
Yeah, fascinating. Susan, I'm so glad that you've come to talk with us about this. I just
Anna.
want to let everyone know where we are in all of this. So he is fighting extradition to New York, which
I wonder why. What does that mean?
I don't blame him. Oh, I totally would fight. Here's why. Yeah. First of all, you're in a small little jail in Pennsylvania,
where the prisoners are on your side. Yeah.
Where the prisoners are on your side. Rikers is a whole other ball game for an Ivy League kid. So if I were him, I would fight extradition.
That
just
makes sense.
Delay. Read the bullet casing. Delay. Okay. Delay. So there's that reason. And there are two paths here. You could have a hearing, an extradition hearing in which New York could, in a limited way, present enough evidence to the judge to say, this is why we believe he is the suspect in the murder case. Therefore, please turn him over to us and let us transport him back. Or there could be a series of governor warrants where it's possible that New York would not have to provide, let's say, evidence during a hearing, although I have a feeling nobody wants to do anything that isn't 100%, I would say, transparent here because of the support he has for him. So I would think an evidentiary hearing, the hearing about extradition, to say, look, we have probable cause to believe that this is the man wanted for this murder. Also, while he's delaying having to face the inevitable at Rikers Island, it's giving the police in New York a few extra weeks to say, oh, well, now we have a DNA hit because we don't have the DNA forensics yet, right? We have fingerprints. We don't have the DNA. So they could, let's say, in a week or two, have that much more evidence against him. And it's like, for sure going to be a slam. Look, he's going to be extradited to New York. It's just a matter of when. And he's just delaying it in a small town, where it isn't as scary as Rikers. That's my personal opinion.
That's a good point. I wondered why. I'm thinking, why are they fighting that? Or is that a thing? And now it makes sense, especially since I heard those prisoners outside of the prison saying, I mean, they get it. They have TVs. So, okay, this prison in Pennsylvania, so they're able to watch and they understand the celebrity around him. They're not angry. They're behind him. I've never seen anything like it. I don't think as a country we have, especially with social media, like you said, in regards to OJ. He was a celebrity. My dad loved him. I know who he was from the movies. And so I'm saying he's become that celebrity on TikTok. It was social media with young people, my daughter even.
Yeah. Well, just a reminder again, the reason we're having this conversation is because this is a murder case. Brian Thompson has been laid to rest in a private funeral. Susan, just a little bit of business on another case, the case that you've been following, because it is coming up. It's very timely. So, you've written the book about the Delphi murders. You were at the trial for Richard Allen, and sentencing is coming up. So when is sentencing, and what are you expecting with victim impact statements?
It's on December 20th, and the judge has set aside a full day from 9 until 6 p.m. And he was found guilty, Richard Allen, of 4 counts. And I believe the minimum, maybe 20 years. So I don't think that would take very long if it was just the sentencing that will be handed down. So I believe there are impact statements. I know there are. And family members will speak on the girl's behalf, kind of how they feel, what they lost. And because there's been a gag order on this case for so long, months and months, and I've said this before, but both families are different. I know that Libby's are more talkative, and I've spoken to Becky several times, and I believe she found healing in talking about Libby through the years, and especially when they were looking for the person that did this. They didn't know. They had sketches on that. And so I think now this will be very healing for her to talk about Libby, what she's missed through the years, how old she would be now. And the same with Abby. Abby's mother was there every day. Abby's grandmother was there, grandfather. So seeing all of the family members there every single day, a month-long trial, 300 plus exhibits, 60 plus witnesses every single day. So now I believe it's their time to talk, not the witnesses, not the attorneys, the families. What do you want to say? What do you want everyone to remember? And how excruciating has it been for you? But more than anything, I believe the point they want to get across, and I was at the Abby and Libby Memorial Park there, is who the girls were, not just on the day, February 13th, 2017, who they were for 14 years and 13 years. Abby 13, Libby 14. And what did we miss out on because of what this person did?
Susan, I have a question for you. So, the judge did not permit any form of electronic recordings, audio, video. You couldn't have computers in the courtroom. You couldn't even have a smartwatch. So, and then with the gag order, I feel that we as the public really didn't get a chance to see this trial. Yeah. And now for the victim impact statements, will the judge permit that to be televised and reported? No?
It's been, there's been notices, formal, petitions to say, hey, and look, my writing is horrible. And I had notebooks in court, and I had about 8 of them when I left. And I'm even trying to read through my own notes. But no, she turned that down. And I believe through her experience and what she went through leading up to this trial with the attorneys and the pushback, and I think, and society as it is, I think she did not want this to turn into a Karen Read trial. And I think she saw the makings of a circus and decided, do I think that it was right to block everyone out? No, I think at least audio, or maybe put it in a separate room streaming. But she didn't want that, and I respect her decision. But with this, local news organizations have said, hey, can any Can we let the public in? Or can you even audio? Can we stream it? Can we get, nope, shut down.
Not even for this. And, that to me, and this is my personal opinion, that when you get to the point, and of course, your statement is to the court, to the judge, and also to the person who's been convicted of taking your loved one. And as you say, it's very painful. For some, it's cathartic. I don't know what it would be like for me, but to not be able to then, let's say, fully publicly express that. I was just working on a serial killer case out of Texas that we're working on for True Crime News. And on this case, because cameras were not allowed in the courtroom, the victims who read their victim impact statements, they felt denied that they could say it publicly. So the daughter of a murder victim who I interviewed, she wanted to read it to us, and we recorded it.
Wow.
Because she wanted it.
I love
she
that.
She wanted to be heard. So,
it's amazing.
So, I'm taking that from the family member of another murder victim, how they felt. They wish that their words could have been broadcast, if you will, and shared. So I don't know what the families will feel like afterwards. That's an excellent point. And there may be a possibility, especially because they have so much trust in you, that if they choose to, maybe you'll be able to record their victim impact statements outside of the courtroom and then maybe share it with the rest of us.
Because I think you bring up an excellent point, and that you did that. I bet it was so healing for her that the world missed out. Libby's grandfather said to me, who knows what these girls could have been? I know they would have been something big. They had good hearts. The world missed out. And so I agree. I think that the world should hear who they were, who they could have been, and how kind they were throughout the years if they were here.
Yeah. So anyway, I know you're going to go back for sentencing. You've done an amazing job of covering this case, and we're so appreciative of you sharing so much, not only here on True Crime News, the podcast, but on True Crime News, the show. We're very grateful to your reporting on this.
It's always a pleasure to be with you and to talk about it in your heart, not only your skills as a journalist through the years. I mean, it goes without saying, but just how kind you are and welcoming. So thanks to you.
So Susan, where can people follow you for those who want to know what happens at sentencing and they feel that they're most comfortable hearing it from you?
Yeah. Instagram I'll be on. I'm relatively new to TikTok, but I'm getting the hang of that. In broadcast news, it's very different. This is more casual, so I'll be keeping you posted.
What's your handle? It's
at Susan, I think, _Hendricks.
Just Google Susan Hendricks. You'll find her.
Google me. Sorry.
Google me. It'll be fine. Everything will be fine. You can find all of our social media at My True Crime News. You can find me at Anna G News. Google me. You can find this episode, all our episodes, wherever you choose to get your podcasts. Of course, you can subscribe to our YouTube channel, which I really encourage because we have such a vibrant, vocal community. I can't wait to hear your thoughts on what we talked about today. And you can receive our newsletter at truecrimenews.com. So until next week, this is True Crime News, the podcast. I'm your host, Anna Garcia. See you next time, everyone.
Bye.